I'm Jenny Joy, and today in our Vision Times News, we take stock of the last quarter century on this, the 25th anniversary of The Great Thirst. Today's broadcast is brought to you by Wanna Make a Planet. Take to the stars now. I'm here at the development site for Angus Glen Oasis, multinational corporation EarthTorp's organic housing project, to look at their latest solution to humanity's continued quest for survival. In a moment, I'll meet with Stuart Gardner, lead scientist of EarthTorp. But first, let's do a brief review of the global shifts that brought us here. The crushing reality of peak oil in 2021 occurred when 60%, or 4.8 billion, of the Earth's human population had moved to cities, leaving them dependent on a support system soon to be crippled by dwindling oil supply. For that shift generation, it came as a shock, and then it got worse. 2025 brought with it consequences of global warming's critical apex, causing what would be a decade of drought, the Great Thirst. Extreme heat and meager precipitation created severe freshwater shortages on every continent of Earth. Economic wars over mass refugee migrations and resource trade disputes broke out between hydro control countries, Canada, the nation of Central America, and Russia, and the Parched Nations coalition of China, Australia, and India, backed by Syria, Israelistan, and the nation of Africa, which nearly calamitied our very existence. After reports of deaths in the billions were confirmed, and the US backed the PNC, negotiations brought a new salience and commitment to share water and work together on finding a solution. When the ocean's currents changed course after the last of the polar ice melted, a cooler climate returned to some countries, but brought with it overwhelming rainfall. Globally, the death toll was so high, 2.2 billion gone, with 50% of their population still in drought and living in urban homes with little functioning infrastructure. Distribution of the water became a key target issue. In 2038, multinational researchers EarthTorp announced a breakthrough in bioengineering, making it possible to have a living infrastructure for water gathering, filtering, and distribution to replace failed urban public works. Dubbed Subterrainian Culture Terrahydra-tubules, or SCT, the system came to be known as super cool tubes. But we know that turned out to be not so cool after all. 10 years ago, domestic terrorists destroyed the first installation attempt in New Houston, Texas, by infecting the system with nanobots. With the decimation blamed on poor oversight and a vulnerable system design, SCT was shelved, and with it our hopes for a solution. "10 years on, ovXn is investigating EarthTorp's latest breakthroughs with the SCT system. As your source for informed news on the collective good, I tracked down EarthTorp, who were only too happy to share their latest moves in harnessing the power of their super cool tubes. What it means for us, however, has yet to be determined." And now we're joined by scientist Stuart Gardner from his lab via iHollow. Hello, Stuart. How are things in Rio de Janeiro?
Hi, Jenny. Fine, thanks. Glad to meet with you.
Thanks for joining us. I understand that SCT is building here on this site. What is EarthTorp planning, and how does it work?
So what we have done is we've taken the base DNA structure of the Central American traversing vine and manipulated it in such a way that we've been able to program it to do exactly as we would like, with the result being the subterranean culture Terrahydra-tubules. The SCT infrastructure is programmed to collect and filter water, absorb minerals and nutrients, and dispense them based on the user's needs. SCT does this by constantly communicating with itself and monitoring the water from the residents it services. We have also programmed the entire genome to increase the growth rate by 150 times, and therefore, the tubes only take about a month or so to grow, to the point where we can actually start to take on residences. It's very exciting stuff.
That's intriguing. How long will this process take?
Here at Angus Glen Oasis, we've already been farming for about 2 weeks, so we project it won't be much longer, about 20 days.
Well, that sounds great, but given the history of this project and the attacks in 2040 on New Houston, how can anyone interested in living here be ensured of their safety?
We've totally restructured the genome to make it impervious to the same nanobot attacks that happened 10 years ago. What we have here is SCT 2.0, much more advanced. And to ensure for the future that viruses or nanobot attacks would not happen again, we have used hyperproteogenomics to basically build our own advanced form of evolution, where the SCTs react to protect themselves from attacks, talking to each other in coordinated defense.
Thanks for joining us, Stuart. That was really helpful. Stuart isn't the only one that feels this way. Earlier we spoke with CEO of EarthTorp, Martine Chesterfield, who is evangelical about the new SCT.
The subterranean culture-tubule system is the answer to so many of society's problems because it rose out of necessity. We recognize that some customers may have hesitations as a result of the terrorist attack a decade ago. Let me assure you, and all citizens, that we have learned much since our last implementation of the biotech, and we're back better than ever. In our newest version, SCT 2.0, we've upgraded the genetic coding of the tubes so that they are hyper-resistant to viruses and nanobot attacks that previously posed a threat. What's truly revolutionary is that our new breakthroughs in plant communications technology allow the entire system to respond to the individual health needs of our customers. If you have a vitamin C imbalance, SCT intelligently responds to this need, analyzing your bodily waste and informing you of your nutritional requirements. This is the real vitamin water that we're talking about. SCT is much needed at times like these to assure our resilience, especially as mineral and nutrient resources are becoming scarce. Of course, SCT 2.0 is only the beginning. As a futures-oriented company, our R&D lab is working on SCT 3.0, which will be encoded to handle the more pugnacious environments of the mining colonies on the moon. And in the future, we will produce products that will go to the colonies on Mars.
The re-emergence of SCT is certainly news, but this discovery suggesting people and plants can communicate. Can plants speak? If so, can anyone hear them? And what could this newest layer mean for the future survival of the human race? To get some answers, we talked to Professor Schmidt-Hasselbacher of Monsanto Institute.
We first discovered that plants had their own form of communication about 60 years ago in the 1990s. But the real breakthrough occurred about 8 years ago when a group from the nation of Central America were able to elicit two-way communication. From this, the Centralians commercialized the living street lamps that are now commonplace, and I will demonstrate. It was the first form of visual communication that we could see. For example, we developed these plants that glow. When together, they form a stronger bond and they light together. Just beautiful. This breakthrough, combined with programmable DNA coding developed over the past 20 years, has allowed us to customize plant genomes and the plant's entire communications pathway, which permits us to influence its growth patterns. It is analogous to programmable bacterial cells that were developed in the early 2020s. But bacterial, being prokaryotes, were relatively simplistic in their construction. Now that we've begun to understand the genetic language of the eukaryotic cells, like plants, it will not be long before we can code all eukaryotic cells, including humans. It makes your imagination run wild with possibilities.
The technology is remarkable, but are the supposed nutritional benefits of the SCT system adequate to meet human needs? Medical professionals find some welcome possibilities in the theory behind the claims.
This technology is very promising. Malnutrition and vitamin deficiency has been observed in the last 20 years. Easier access to patient information on which vitamins and minerals are needed will provide people with healthier lives and ultimately less trips to come see me. The potential medical benefits applied worldwide could help eliminate hydration issues and malnutrition.
But is it all good news? The lessons of history can become vague. For this angle on the opinions of those who have weathered SCT's previous trials, we've connected with our reporter at large.
Hi, I'm ovXn correspondent Chelsea Coffey, and I traveled to New Houston to speak with some residents of the city affected by climate shifts and SCT developments.
Don't get me wrong. Creating a hybrid platform between, the Terrahydra SCT tubes, and then trying to put that in the earth, I can understand why, but I will never, ever approve of something like that. It's beautiful, don't get me wrong, I get it. Something I can never stand for is trying to make that connection between humankind and nature, okay?
And I'm here to express my distaste for SCT. I mean, it should be a constitutional right for every American to have access to the best quality water possible. I remember a time when this country had principles and stood for something. People are dying. Now is not the time to experiment privately. This is part of the class war against the underprivileged masses, and we will not take this lying down. We will fight and fight and fight until our voices are heard, our demands are met. I mean, how would you feel if you lost your job and all of a sudden you had to move to a part of town where they hadn't implemented SCT? Huh? I mean, what would you do?
Finally, outside of EarthTorp's Botanist Nanotech Multinational Research Group, there are scientists who have their doubts about SCT.
SCT is a great idea in theory, but EarthTorp is flippantly rushing the development process. It is not properly real-world testing the effects of GPOs, or genetically programmable organisms. Proper scientific procedure has not been addressed. Look what happened in South America. And in Machu Picchu, things got out of control. No one did their due diligence. I'm not doubting the science. Based on the modern methods and the models of nanotechnology and genetic manipulation, it is theoretically possible for SCT to work. But the consequences of releasing this stuff with unknown procedures it's dangerous. Shouldn't be done.
SCT may bring a lot of interesting solutions to the continued survival on this planet. However, is it really needed? Because despite SCT, life always does seem to go on. Whether you're for or against this new development, the question we have to ask ourselves, is this the solution that it has the potential to be? Or are we hastily adding to the problem by not carefully considering the ultimate consequences of our actions? Next time on ovXn, do rapid prototyped humans have a soul? I'm Jenny Joy, signing off. Thanks for watching. So, what do you think of super cool tubes?
Well, I'm sure they're great, but I mean, I'm moving to the Mars colony, so whatever happens here doesn't really affect me.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What do you think of SCT, known as super cool tubes?
Oh yeah, I heard that. I don't even know why we're still trying to fix the problem. I'd rather have a way out. I'm really tired. Really tired.
So what do you think of SCT?
I don't give a shit.